Okay, let's make a Neopixel blade. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my strips, I'm going to prepare them. So this blade is going to be 82 pixels long. It's a fairly short blade, but I have a couple reasons for doing that. One is it's easier to work with in this small workshop. Two is I already have an 82 pixel blade, so I won't have to change any settings on my preferred style, my configuration file. So I'm just going to take these out of their spools. Alright. And then I want to count out the 82 pixels, and I want to make sure I'm counting from the bottom. They have these little arrows on them. So I want the bottom of the strip here. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 20, 28, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 52, 54, 56, 58, 60, 62, 64, 68, 70, 72, 74. See, I think I messed up count somewhere because this should be 72 right at that joint there. So let's try this again. 2, 3, 4. There we go. Now that time I got 72 at the joint. That's what it should be. So now I just need 10 more. You know what they say, measure twice, cut once. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. I'll just take my scissors. I'll give that cut right on that line. And these will just get set aside. I can probably make a really short blade out of that one. We'll do the same thing here. We'll just go to the joint this time and count 10. There. Again, making sure the arrows are pointing towards the tip. After that, I'm going to cut tiny little corners. Careful not to go over the line by that resistor. And cutting these corners just helps it slide into the foam and fit in the tip of the blade better. Alright. The next thing we want to do is combine these into one strip. I'll actually want to take off this heat shrink first. So I'm going to go like this, carefully get that heat shrink off of here. There we go. This other side. Oh, it's already off. What am I doing? Alright. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the adhesive backing off of one of these strips so that it'll sit more flush. And it'll adhere to the other strip better. Because if you have two pieces of adhesive, then they might slide around. So I want to get not just the backing, but the whole adhesive strip here, like that. I just want to pull them back like that. There we go. Now I'm going to need some electrical tape on these little parts here. Just on the end to cover these three contacts. I just need enough to go like that. Pull it over a little bit. Just enough so that those contacts won't make any, they won't touch these ones that are also cut. And then I also have to do that at this joint right here. Right where the two strips meet. Alright. Well, I also have to do it right here. A little too much tape there. Alright, now I can stick these two strips together. I want a nice flat surface to work on for that part. I need to get these as straight as I can. And then take the backing off of this one. I want to leave the adhesive, but this one is trying to come with. Maybe I'll peel from the other end. There we go. Alright. So I'm going to get this adhesive off. If you're using a longer strip, you may want to not take it all off at once. But alright, so I want to line up these first pixels as best I can. Stick them together. And then just slowly, while keeping it pressed down on the table, and keeping these as straight as I can, pressing these together. It's doing alright, keeping all the pixels lined up. Right up until the end. Cool. And then I want to lay it flat and just press it all down. Alright. Next step is to remove these clips. I'm actually not going to use those. I have wire snips for that. Alright. Now these have some extra wires. There's an extra red and an extra white on each one. So you can snip those off. And then you also want to make sure these wires are separated. So there. These are good to go. You want to make sure that you got a little over an inch on these wires. Maybe an inch and an eighth. So we're gonna start snipping these. Those are nice and snipped. And then I want to strip each of them. Back like that. I don't want to strip that much off. I just want like a tiny bit on these. This is some tough insulation on these wires. But there, they're all decently stripped. And set that aside. And what I'm going to work on next is the tiny, tiny resistor. There it is. And it's actually that tiny dot inside that little piece of paper. That's the resistor. So to make this easier to work on, I'm going to tape it down. Like this. I need to get this resistor out of here. There's a little bit of plastic backing here. I guess it's fronting in this case. Alright, and then I dump that resistor out. You can see it? Alright, it's tiny. Next, I want to pick up that resistor with a piece of tape, but with just enough exposed. That. And I want to set it on this pad. Like that. Now, turn on my soldering iron. Get some solder. For it to heat up here. Nope, not yet. There we go. Alright, it's melting solder. Now I gotta be really careful here. Because I want to clean that off a little better. Alright, I got some solder on there. I'm not sure if it's stuck or not. We'll take this tape off and see if the resistor comes with. Nope. Alright, it's on there. So we can solder the other side. I'm going to clean up this side again. There we go. That tiny resistor is soldered. Next, we need to solder our strips onto the connector. So I'm going to start by taking these three on the bottom and bending them back. And we'll just start with these three for now. I got a bit of a long wire I want to snip. There we go. Alright, I'll take my helping hands so I can hold these wires while I pre-tin them. I need to line it up so that I got the negative, which is the white one, going there. However, I actually want it to be coming from the other side. You'll see why in a minute. So I want it to go like this and touch those pads there. Put that in the helping hands. And I'm going to pre-tin those three pads. There. I'm actually going to pre-tin the other three while I'm doing it. There. And then I just need to connect these three wires that I pre-tinned to those three pads. So we're going to do them one at a time. Comes the green data, and then the red positive. Okay. Now I want to pre-tin these other three. Trying to get them all twisted. Alright. Now, I'm going to take this and bend it around like this. This red wire and this white wire come around, and the green one goes through. Like that. Then I hold these, and I can solder these three wires on. Alright. Done with the soldering iron. Let's check those. They all look good. The next step is to slide on this adapter like this. And then this blade thing should snap into place in it, like that. Perfect. For the next step, we're going to need a hot glue gun. So, let me pull that out. Might need one of those. Now we're just going to let that heat up. But basically we want to put some glue down in there so it touches the board and holds that in place. And then while the glue is cooling, we want to hold this so we get a nice tight joint here. We want there to be some flex in the wires, but none in the joints. So we can use a piece of cardboard for scrap. There we go, now it's starting to come out. Come out nice and smooth. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to squeeze it down in there fairly liberally. And get it all around. If I have too much, I can always snip it off. But there's that. And then we just want to, while it's cooling, twist and hold these wires till it gets nice and cool. It's pretty dry. We also want to put some glue on those joints right there. Just a little bit. Just enough to cover them. There. We're done with the hot glue. Alright, next step is going to be to cut actually the diffusion foam that we're going to be using. So we'll get it out of here. Come on, there we go. Get this foam here. So we want to cut it. It's going to sit flush there. And we want to cut it so that 1 pixel sticks out. Sharpie, and we're going to cut it right there. There. And we'll use that as the bottom end because it's not as clean. And we also need to measure and cut our polycarbonate tube. Which is gonna sit flush with that part. And again, we want 1 pixel to stick out. And this takes a little more doing to cut. I'm going to stick it in this vise. I'll use a saw. I could probably use a power saw for this, but I don't want to bother with setting it up and all that. Handsaw goes through it just fine, and I can clean that up and make it straight on the sander. There. I can also take a knife to deburr this. Alright, so now we can start assembling everything. We want to slide our Neopixel strips into the foam, which is easier if it's pressed flat like that. So let's just go right in. if we did it right, one pixel will stick out at the end. Boop. Perfect. And then we want to stick this in here. Actually, I want to clean it off. We don't want any little specks of stuff on our blade when we light it up. Alright. Insert that into here, which should slide into the blade perfectly. So we wanted the foam to stick out a little bit because it'll compress inside. So we should be able to take this tip here, just put it on, and press it. And that's a Neopixel blade. I'll probably take it apart a little bit and put some epoxy right here, just so it's nice and secure. I'm actually out of clear epoxy. I'll have to do that some other time. But the general idea is you mix two parts together and you just put a tiny dab on it before you put it together. And yeah, there you go. That's a Neopixel blade. The next episode will focus on downloading the SD card package and the firmware update and getting all that done. And we'll see if we can get this blade lit up. So, see you again.